Hello and welcome to the Irish NFL Show's Week 12 preview, brought to you in association with our partners Quinbet. Brian O'Leary and Kieran Boyle join me, Shane Brennan. I am in the driver's seat this evening as Conor Brophy is on a bye week this week. Also on a bye week this week are the Broncos, Chargers, Commanders and Dolphins, which leaves us with 14 games in Week 12 to look forward to. Thank you to everybody who's joining us live on X, on YouTube, on our Facebook pages, and who are listening in podcast form from Friday morning onwards, as we do every week. We really appreciate your support throughout the season and throughout the year. Brian and Craig teamed up for this week's preview of Thursday Night Football, which tonight sees the Buffalo Bills take on the Houston Texans. Go check that one out before kickoff tonight at 1:15 Irish time. But here we're going to kick off tonight with another big one in the AFC, as the Colts and Chiefs prepare for one of the most consequential matchups of the season. And Kieran, I'll throw it to you first, because interesting one here that the Chiefs are coming into this game as 3.5-point favorites, despite the fact that they're the ones that are 5-5 and sitting outside of the playoff bubble right now, whereas the Colts have got the run game going, are the highest scoring offense in the league, and are sitting at 8-2. I don't know how much the Arrowhead factors come into that, but people are expecting the Chiefs to try and come alive now after two losses in the bounce.
Yeah, I'm expecting that as well. It's almost like they've been laying in wait and fooling everybody, and that 5-5 record is just kind of putting blinkers over people's eyes. Mahomes, he hasn't lost 3 consecutive games since entering the NFL, and they're 4-1 at home. I know on the road, obviously they're 1-4, but Colts coming in here, they haven't played they've only played 2 games outdoors all season, and we all know the Arrowhead crowd factor can be. But every game right now for the Chiefs is a must-win. They're essentially in playoff mode. I mean, if you remember, like last year with the Bengals, when they were chasing the tails and kind of scrambling towards the end of the season, that's a similar situation. And I mean, the amount of games the Chiefs have played over the last 8-9 years in the playoffs, they already know how this goes. So I mean, they're not new to this. They're just going to hit the on button and get straight into almost like postseason form. They're getting better at the right time. I mean, there's so you can see the momentum. You can almost sense the momentum that they're building. And I think a lot of people have started to write the Chiefs off. You can't write the Chiefs off. I mean, they're right there in the division. They're right there in the conference. I think the Colts coming in this is probably, I don't want to say it's the first big test. A lot of people have said things about their schedule, about maybe the ease of the schedule, but I mean, I think everyone's waiting for the other shoe to drop with Daniel Jones. And if ever the other shoe is going to drop, this would be the game. I mean, you're going up against Leo Chanel and, George Karlaftis and absolute linebacking beasts and that front four for the Chiefs. So I'm not writing the Chiefs off at all. I think this is one of those games where they start building momentum. We'll get into Thanksgiving week. December is a crucial month, obviously, in the NFL. You've got that combo still of Kelsey, Mahomes, even throw in Hollywood Brown there, that still strikes fear in a lot of people. And this defense, although it's been much maligned, I mean, we can say what we've said about Chris Jones and how he may have declined. But I mean, when you've got Nick Bolton and Karlaftis back there, this is still the same old Chiefs. And until somebody really well and truly, kills them, I'm not willing to believe that they're out of it yet. So it's going to be a tough battle for the Colts. But I'm going with the Chiefs. I don't think it's an issue right now. I think they're going to go and win this.
I completely see where you're coming from. I've had the chance to see both of these teams live this season. The Colts in their last game had played in Berlin, and of course the Chiefs are in Arrowhead, and there was a real sort of Arrowhead buzz around them. I thought that they were back after their early season problems, and they go to Buffalo and go to Denver and let that slip again. And like you said, Kieran, they're in a position now where they have to win 5 of their last 7 games in order to be safely in the playoffs, especially the way that their head-to-heads work with other teams that are going into the wildcard race. So, their backs up against the wall is pushing now. It's funny. I said before the Bills game that I said, the Chiefs are coming into playoff mode. They're going to win this game, and they didn't. And I said the exact same thing before the Denver game. And I don't want to just rush into this game or just say the exact same thing. But you need to just look at what the Chiefs have going for them. Mahomes actually in the last couple of weeks has been their weakness. But I think in Arrowhead that won't necessarily be the case. He's at an under 80 rating. Their offense hasn't been able to score more than 20 points. So an interception each of the last 2 games. Rashee Rice has been letting a lot of passes slip through his fingers, which wasn't the case for the first couple of games that he came back after his suspension. The Chiefs got up a lot of penalties last week. I think there was 10 against Denver, which is the kind of ill discipline which has not been typical of how an Andy Reid team has played so far this year. It's their defense has managed to keep them close. So the third best in the league when it comes to points allowed as a unit. I know we could talk about sort of how well some individual players have been performing within that unit, but as a unit, they're still playing pretty solid. They do give up a high completion percentage, but if they manage to keep Alec Pierce quiet and find some way to make sure that Jonathan Taylor has a game unlike what he had in Germany and keep him relatively quiet, they definitely have a path to victory here. What's interesting is, of course, we forget that fact that the Colts defensive coordinator has a lot of experience in trying to make sure that Patrick Mahomes stays quiet. Of course, it's Lou Anarumo, who's the Bengals defensive coordinator for much of that sort of rivalry which we saw in the earlier parts of this decade. Generally, what he does, and they have a 3-3 record against each other, Mahomes and Anarumo. Generally, what the Anarumo defense does is it sit back and doesn't force the blitz when they need to, and tries to make Mahomes, if he's going to scramble, don't give him a lot of room to do so. That might make things a little bit more difficult. But despite the fact that, despite the fact that the Colts have been able to put up over 29 points in 8 games, they don't throw a lot of interceptions. The running game is exceptional. Until they get a big win like this on the road, we're not going to start talking about them as serious Super Bowl contenders, which is mad to say considering their record and how far they've come this year. But are you a fairy tale, or are you somebody who we can genuinely be afraid of? And going into Arrowhead Stadium and beating this Chiefs team means we can start looking at you as being somebody we can be genuinely afraid of. And I'm not at that point with the Colts yet. I agree with you, Kieran. I think the Chiefs are going to win this one. Brian?
I think the dagger is coming for this Chiefs team, but I don't think it's this weekend. I think potentially it could be on Thanksgiving when they go up against the Cowboys in Dallas. I'm going to go with the Chiefs to win this game. I think this will be a tough environment for the Colts and Daniel Jones in particular. I think the Chiefs get over the line.
Next, we're going to look at is a matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and Green Bay Packers. Packers 6.5-point favorites in Lambeau Field here, Brian. The Vikings have let a couple of close ones slip by them, as they did as the Bears came up with another fantastic fourth quarter comeback last week. The NFC North is not closed by any means, but if the Vikings lose this one here, they might feel like they're just one step behind the other 3 teams. The Packers need to assert their dominance early in this one.
Yeah, I feel the jury's still out on both these teams, in particular the Packers, despite their great record, and they're very much in the race to win this division this year. They haven't been convincing the last couple of weeks. Offensively in particular, if they lose the Panthers game, they lose the Packers game. Kieran O'Donnell within the group obviously has aired his frustrations. I suppose the erratic offense in which we've seen over the course of the season, like they're very much reliant on their defense. And yet last weekend in the game in MetLife, the Giants effectively went pretty much up and down the field for large parts, even to the end where they finally got their interception. People will suggest that they had huge opportunities to intercept time and time again. They didn't take advantage of that opportunity, but I still felt they weren't at the level in which we saw over the course of the season. Offensively, I didn't think they were. They had some real jump ball situations last weekend against the Giants. Like they found ways to get plays at particular times in the game, which was allowed them to get the scores and the crucial victory that they needed. They're going up against the Vikings team that JJ McCarthy today in his comments said something along the lines of, I'm a fizzy bottle waiting to pop, and it's coming soon. Well, it better come soon for this team, because this team are on their last legs at this stage. And like, as much as Kevin O'Connell's a great head coach, and as I said to Connor last week, if he was released of his service, there'd be many a team jumping all over him to get him. Surely the pressure is going to come at some stage, and maybe it's more so for next year. The fact that he's gone out on a limb for his quarterback, because just right now hasn't shown at the level in which people are expecting. I remember me and Kieran Boyle doing a podcast a couple of years ago, Kieran, when we spoke about the Alabama game and how he didn't throw that much when he was in that offense in college. And now he is required to do this. And I think that's what we're seeing. He's just not at that level right now. It could come in time, but this season for me is too much for him. And I think on Sunday, the Packers will find a way to get over the line. I'll run with the Packers, but I think there's bigger concerns for the Packers to come as well.
Yeah, Kieran, interesting one here. Obviously, I mean, the questions over JJ McCarthy aren't going to be quiet unless he puts in a consistent run. We saw a decent performance against Detroit a couple weeks ago, and it just hasn't quite clicked at that point of view. These divisional matchups, in theory, offer the best opportunity because they're defenses that you're more familiar with, so you can plan for better. But I just don't know whether the Packers are going to let this game slip, considering what it means for the season.
Yeah, McCarthy's struggling a lot right now. I mean, this is really a tale of 2 quarterbacks who are trying to find their feet and trying to get their teams back in some sort of a consistent path. But to me, the real story is McCarthy. And, like Brian said, when Harbaugh was in Michigan, I mean, he had McCarthy for that year that he was there. And he only, in the championship game, he only threw the ball 10 times. So Harbaugh knew something. So, his kind of specialty was handing the ball off and kind of little dinks and slant passes and screen passes. So I'm not sure how much development he's gone from then to where he is right now. It came in very heralded, obviously. But, on top of the team, I mean, his consistency, I mean, he's only completing 52.9% of his passes. He's got a 15.7 of his passes have been inaccurate. And there's been a lot of talk this week about his inaccuracy, about his kind of posture, his throwing motion. So there's a lot of work going on there. And I'm not sure if O'Connell knew how much of a kind of reclamation project he had in his hands. He may be good in time, but the question will be, maybe, is it going to be in Minnesota? Because there's already whispers about maybe benching him. So that's kind of the issue that the Vikings are facing right now. I mean, you saw last week the frustration with Jefferson. It's not clicking. It's a tough watch. They're 4-6, to all intents and purposes. I mean, another win and they're done. I mean, if they're not done already. And I think this Packers team, they're a 7-point favorite. They've got their own issues obviously going on too. They have a little bit on offense. I'm not 100% sold on the effectiveness of the wide receivers. And I'm not fully sold on Josh Jacobs either. I mean, we saw how much he struggled against the Eagles. He barely got anything going. But you need, in this league, we've seen, especially in this month of November, we've seen the effectiveness of running backs, whether it's Henderson. We saw the guy in Tampa. We've seen Bijan Robinson. I forget the Tampa running back's name. But, over the past 5 games, Jacobs only amassed, he got 40 yards, 74 against the Eagles, 87 on the ground against Carolina, only 33 against Pittsburgh. If you're going to do damage in the league, you need a running back, a consistent running back like a Jonathan Taylor who's putting up 100+. I mean, that's where you need to mix up your ground and air game, and that's what to me what the Packers are lacking in. That all said, I think they have more on their end to be able to deal with the Vikings defense. I think it's going to be a real scrappy game. Weather shouldn't be a factor. I just looked earlier on. It's going to be in the high 50s with the rough weather up in Wisconsin has not kicked in yet. But I still like the Packers to win this game.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I just don't fully trust. It is interesting with the JJ McCarthy situation. We talk about Kevin O'Connell as being the quarterback whisperer who can work magic just about anybody he's been given. And look at the list of players he's been given. But the one player that's been drafted on him and has been actually given as a full project to develop, it hasn't worked. And maybe you actually start questioning as to whether JJ McCarthy should have went so high in the draft in the first place. And I think after this game, those questions will become just that little bit louder. We move on now to the battle between the New England Patriots and the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's get the less variable part of this out of the way first, and that is the Patriots. The Patriots, of course, come into this on an 8-game win streak. Drake May has been playing very well, 100+ quarterback rating in 9 of the last 10. He's gone back-to-back games where he's only taken 1 sack. And if you look at the way that the Patriots have played, particularly against the Jets, the last time they're out on Thursday Night Football, he's doing really good at always sort of finding a second option and giving it to the second option. That's been a real part of how Josh McDaniels' offense has played. And against this Cincy defense, you can trust that the Patriots are going to try and sort of keep rolling. There's no real reason to see that anything could be different. What really is really interesting, though, is who are the Bengals going to be starting on their side of the ball. We know Jamar Chase will be out for sure. We know that. He is not playing in this game. But over the last couple of days, it seems to be developing a certain way that Joe Burrow might be back. Now, maybe it's just a lot of training considering that the Bengals had to play on Thursday night on Thanksgiving against the Ravens. But Joe Burrow was 11v11 in training yesterday. Today, he was taking the QB1 reps with Flacco, who's carrying a shoulder injury, taking QB2 reps in training. We're not quite sure what way this is going to work out by the time we get to Sunday, but I don't know, guys. Regardless of who's playing quarterback, I still don't trust the Bengals to have enough on defense to stop the Patriots, and I have enough on offense without Jamar Chase to really make this game any more interesting than it already will be, regardless of which guy named Joe is playing quarterback. Because let's be fair about this. For as long as Joe Flacco's been there, quarterback has not been the problem in Cincinnati. It's been just about every other position, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, considering what they've lost 7 of the last 8. They're the last in the league when it comes to scoring points allowed. They did hold Pittsburgh to 20 points last week, but as we saw on Thursday Night Football a couple weeks ago, that seems to be a team that match up well well with. Outside of playing against Pittsburgh, they just haven't played good football this year. It's been simple as that, particularly against the run game. So yeah, I'm interested to know what quarterback is going to play on Sunday. But either way, I'm backing the Patriots to win this one. Brian.
Well, I think you can fill you in on that, Shane. In real time, the NFL analysts or insiders have just put out messages to say he has practiced in full participation yet again today, and it looks very likely he will start on Sunday. I just want to put this out on record for people who are coming to me on Monday. Should the Bengals get the Joe Burrow wow factor and they win, I punched my ticket in on Tuesday morning that I had the Bengals winning this game. You're right, the defense has been a mess this season, been one of the worst in the league. You could say it's a shambles. I'd like to think, having had a bye week and having had 2 weeks to reflect on how difficult. Sorry, they haven't had a bye week. They played the Steelers last week. Apologies, but they did play quite better last week to a certain extent. Like, bear in mind there was 2 interceptions returned by the Steelers defense, so they didn't give up a huge amount of numbers compared to other games. I acknowledge that they tend to match up well, as you alluded to there, Shane. But I still think that offensively, the Bengals can put up points. They can put up points in most teams because of the nature of the players. I'm not overly concerned about Jamar Chase being suspended because T. Higgins in his own right is the number one receiver. Like, he got the contract. There was loads of conversation around whether they should be pumping that amount of money into 2 different wide receivers. He could have went elsewhere and been a standout one receiver. I think he can come to the fore on Sunday. I think the running game can be effective. And maybe they should stick with Joe Burrow because with Joe Flacco, because he's the hand. He's the one that put up those big 30, 40 points in 2 games back to back. I worry for a Patriots team. Yes, they've had a really good season offensively. They can run the ball effectively. But if it comes to shootout, I don't think we've yet to see many games where the Patriots have had to go into shootout territory. And for that reason, I'm going to go to a high-scoring game. And I think the Bengals come out the right side of it.
Interesting one. Kieran?
Well, this is a full circle game. I mean, last year, week 1, Patriots upset the Bengals, and I think they're going to beat them again. I think there's too much momentum behind the Patriots, and the Bengals are just a mess right now. So I'll take the Patriots.
Moving on to the New York Giants, who face another NFC North team this week, this time in the face of the Detroit Lions. The last time I read, I'm picking right in saying Jackson Dart is on track to start this one, which, considering famous Jameis had a really, seemed to throw a few nice plays wearing those throwbacks last week, I think might change the entertainment value of this game. The Lions are 10.5-point favorites, probably with a good reason. Brian, is there any hope that New York might be able to pull off an upset here?
No, I don't think there is, Shane, unfortunately, for me and Kieran and other Giants fans. The situation this week, I'm not going to overly detailed in the game, because you look at both teams offensively, it's a no-brainer. The Lions are going to come back into their own environment, which they play very well. They tend to put up an average of 24 points a game at home. They've struggled on the road, let's say, in terms of putting up similar performances. But when they're at home, they're really effective. They're going to get all the players involved. I think Laporte is a big loss. I think it was he was called out on the show earlier in the week by Kieran, the fact that he's gone, and maybe that can, he's a huge piece of that offense. And as we talk about the wide receivers, he also holds it together and allows for other players to get free. Their running game, I mean, they got the monster running game, and it hasn't really clicked this season at the same level in which we saw previously, but they're going up against the Giants defense. With all due respect, they're one of the worst in defending the run. Nothing has cleaned up since Dable left. In fact, if we're going to talk about off the field stuff, it's actually got worse this week. Like, it's actually kind of now, I don't know whether it's a coincidence, but that Dable was holding everything together and none of the noise and the cracks were appearing, but they're appearing now. It's like as if nobody has full control of what's going on in the building. And for me, the only thing that excites me this Sunday is actually seeing Jackson Dart go in and play in an environment like Detroit and see can he come out and play in the manner which he has done this season in difficult environments such as in Denver. I know that's a different completely, I suppose, the nature of what you deal with in Denver, but I'm more about he's able to go into these difficult environments, loud crowds, and still put up performance and still get players to play around and play against him. I think the Giants offense could probably move the ball, but I think ultimately over 4 quarters the Lions will put up I wouldn't say it's a 50-burger type scenario, but I think we could see them running up the scores. And I think the Lions have to do that if they get into that instance, because they got to get their confidence back. Their offense struggled last week, 5 times on 4th down, go for it. For me last week, that was a punt type of game. They should have been punting, because the Eagles couldn't move the ball either. But look, they went a different route. I think this weekend they're in for a nice bounce back game. It's the Lions to cover that spread, which is 10.5, I believe, with Quimby.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. As much as the Lions did struggle offensively, they only got 9 points, and I think what Jared Goff's pass completion rate was something like a third. He's only completing around a third of his passes. That was against Philadelphia in Philadelphia. This is against New York in Detroit, which is a very different prospect. So yeah, I'm with you, Kieran.
Yeah, the tandem and Gibbs and Montgomery. I mean, they struggled last week. This is a perfect game for them to bounce back and destroy that non-existent Giants run defense. There's a non-existent Giants pass defense. I mean, I know Dart's coming back. It scares me and it worries me because I think he needs a little bit of coaching up. I think his running style, it's great and it's exciting and he puts up points, but we got to talk long term in the league. I mean, Scatterbo's a different conversation for another day, but Dart right now, I would lean towards maybe in December, the last couple of days, maybe benching him. But there's nobody in the club or in the team right now who's got the say or any kind of authority to do anything right now. I mean, the Giants are scrambling for wins to keep bums in seats and keep respectability in the league. But this is going to be a beatdown. I mean, this is one of those games where the Lions struggle and then boom, the next week they're putting up 55. I don't think it's going to be 55, but it's going to be plenty of St. Brown. It's going to be plenty of Gibbs and Montgomery, Jameson Williams. It's going to be a long day for Giants fans. But I mean, the season's been toast since late October, so it's just the countdown continues. Games left now. Let's just get to the end of the season and regroup and brush ourselves off.
Shame, quick one. Giants could be the first team to be effectively ruled out of the running to be the playoffs. It'll be the worst. It'll be the earliest they've lost out. Sorry, it'll be the earliest since 1976 that they've been ousted this early season in terms of being in the playoff permutations. It says a lot for where the team is and the organization as a whole.
Can we start the draft talk already? Can we start talking about who's going to get into what position? Who needs to lose?
Oh, yeah.
What
I'm way ahead. I'm scouting the O-line of Miami right now. I got the dudes lined up.
Well, the only thing I'd say there is, sorry, Shane, the difference is last year, and it sounds terrible, Giants fans didn't want to be winning games. They didn't want to win that Colts game. They wanted the first pick of the draft. In hindsight, who knows what would have happened. They might have went down the Karen Moore route. I think Giants fans, despite the troubles, would like to see them win because the Giants are going to be in a much better situation come draft time next April because teams are going to be looking for quarterbacks. And if the Giants are in the top 5, you're going to have people coming up with heavy loaded, looking to do trades. So there is a huge opportunity to rebuild coming down the line next season for a new head coach and potentially a new GM. So, but I think Giants fans would be happy to see them win games as opposed to lose.
Well, it's funny you said that. I was only just reading today a lot of Jets fans trying to do their own version of what could happen if they could somehow draft Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback for the Indiana Hoosiers. And the New York Jets is who we're going to be talking about when we come back after our first break.
Great odds. You're in control. You always bet responsibly. And you're not afraid to choose alternatives. That's why you bet with QuinnBet. Build your own unique football bets with Create a Bet. Winning team, first goal scorer, number of goals, the possibilities are endless. And with a 4-star Trustpilot customer service rating, why not give QuinnBet a shot? QuinnBet, we bet you love it.
Our first break brought to you in association with QuinnBet. I have to say, lads, you could tell Connor's not in the hot seat because usually he'd find some sort of like sexier link to go to, try to keep people involved after the break to talk with the New York Jets. Of course, that's where I had to lead off with. That's not exactly the best game to talk about. We got better games coming up over the course as well. Our second segment coming to you in association with the Arlington Hotel in Dublin City Centre. Myself and Brian will be there this day next week on Thanksgiving Thursday, watching all of the football and the action. We hope to see you there. The great thing about our Thanksgiving party is there's no obligation, there's no fee, there's no tickets. Just walk in and have the crack because that's what we're about here at the Irish NFL Show. But let's get the New York Jets out of the way because they are facing against the Baltimore Ravens, Kieran. The Ravens are 13.5-point favorites at home for a reason. I don't really have another way to explain that. Yeah,
I mean, the Jets are banged up. You can see Aaron Glenn in defensive mode the whole time. I mean, they're going to go with Tyrod Taylor. At this stage, their offense is really Breece Hall, and you got to wonder about his frame of mind right now. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Does he really want to go out there and get banged up for the last seven games of the season when he's looking to get out of the team, track with somebody else? At this stage, the Jets, they're going to want to see what they got in Mason Taylor. I mean, he's a really good prospect of a tight end that they got in the draft. But, other than special teams, you struggle to see where the Jets are going to get any points. I mean, other than the special teams, kickers, whether it's that or punt returns, kick returns, you can't rely on that. But that's really the main kind of source of points they've had the last couple of weeks. Like I said, Breece Hall's frame of mind, you'd have to be concerned about. The Ravens, I mean, they're just going to be rubbing their hands at the prospect of coming up against the Jets at home. I mean, Lamar, we saw he's coming back into it. They're 4-game win streak now. Everyone, his kind of surrounding cast is getting more and more kind of involved. We've seen much more Zay Flowers than we did September, October. Mark Andrews gets a touchdown last week. The defense is coming back together again. So it's a perfect time for the, I spoke about it Monday. Some of these teams are starting to build momentum into December, start getting right for January. So this is definitely a game for the Ravens to, do some work, put some, that like that Mark Andrews play they had last week, do some, get some stunts going, keep the Jets on the feet. I mean, even without Marlon Humphrey, they should be fine. I mean, Rashad Bateman's out as well, but they've got more than enough talent in this team to put up at least 14 against this Jets team who, they've all floated a bunch of people. They try to get rid of Breece Hall at the draft. So what is his motivation to go out there, get banged up when he's looking for a bigger contract or a bigger and better team and a better contract? So you can see there's no other scenario. This is probably the lock of the week. I mean, there's no other scenario of the Ravens putting up, big points and the Jets just scrambling and struggling the whole time.
The only thing in the Jets' defense is, of course, they did win 2 games in a row before looking not the worst against the Patriots on Thursday Night Football last week. But I mean, that doesn't cut it when you're against the Ravens team who have Lamar back. Even if Lamar is more conservative, his rushing game, his passing game is still pretty solid. They're high scoring favorites for a reason. But as well as that, the Ravens know if they win this game, they go into their primetime Thanksgiving game with a winning record and with the AFC North firmly in their side. They're not going to let a Super Bowl like this drop by the wayside. Brian.
Yeah, I agree with you. 2 huge games against the Steelers coming in December. They just got to keep on track and not worry about what the Steelers do. This is just for me I wouldn't say it's a foregone conclusion. We might see a bit of a bump from Tyrod Taylor in terms of how he plays, but ultimately they're not going to have enough over the course of the 4 quarters. It's a Ravens victory for me.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Steelers because the current kings of the AFC North matches up against the current kings of the NFC North. The Pittsburgh Steelers going to Chicago. All of the talking point around this game has been whether we will see Aaron Rodgers start because, of course, it's the whole he's coming back to Soldier Field, continuing his ownership of the franchise, yada, yada, yada. But, Brian, regardless of whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph starting, I don't know, does that really affect how you see this game going? Because there's a lot of other things going on between the Bears' ability to win these close games, what's happening on the Steelers' defense as to how consistent they've been. There's a lot more to this game than just who's playing quarterback for the Steelers, I think.
Yeah, for me, this game is about how the Bears manage the situation of being favorites and the expectations are slowly starting to gradually build because I wouldn't say they've been floating under the radar over the course of the season. I think over the last few weeks, people are starting to acknowledge this team are a serious threat within the division. Like right now, they're sitting on top of the division. Ben Johnson clearly hasn't playing. But what's really telling is the manner in which they're getting these victories. We spoke about it a couple of weeks ago about the fact that they remind me of that Vikings team a couple of years ago when Kevin O'Connell first initially went in there. They were winning all those close games. Everyone said their luck would run out. They wouldn't make the playoffs. Ultimately, they did. They fell short in the playoffs. That kind of strikes me where the Bears are at. There's such a great belief about the team now. They go into this game. You would have looked at this game a few weeks ago and said, right, this is a Steelers win all over it. And look, it could well be that the line is still very short. It's only 3 points. So I don't know if that's a case of the expectation that Aaron Rodgers is going to come in here. What's worrying me for Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin today didn't suggest one way or the other where Aaron Rodgers is going to play. They did acknowledge he went and practiced. The Steelers' offense over the course of the last few weeks for Aaron Rodgers hasn't played at a consistent level. They've been up and down. We spoke time and time against their defense. They seem to have, I wouldn't say they've got their defense back on track, but the defense is finding ways to, in the right spots, come up with big plays. We saw it against the Colts at home, 4 interceptions. Saw last weekend 2 touchdowns returned by their defense. The defense is stepping up and their offense isn't doing it. Mason Rudolph came in last week. I think he threw for 210 yards, a touchdown. Like, he moved that. He was able to move that offense. I'm not saying he's playing at a better level than Aaron Rodgers, but I think if they have to rely on him on Sunday, there's no reason why he can't go in there and put a reasonably good performance, allowing them to go and be in a position to win the game. If Aaron Rodgers plays, what concerns me is what happens if he falls on that particular arm. So we're saying he has a fractured arm or something like that. Like he's going to yeah, they're saying, yeah, he can throw because it's not his throwing arm. But what happens where he gets sacked and he falls back on that particular broken part of the arm? That's a huge concern for me. And that's why I think the Bears will go after him time and time again if he does play. I am going with the Bears. I think they're riding high. They know how to win these games now, as opposed to games where all of us have watched their team find ways, in particular us, find ways to show away these games late in the fourth quarter. In fact, the Bears do the way they tend to come. And even I thought was admirable last week, the fact that they looked like they had that game sewn up. Then they lost and still found a way to come back and win it. That kind of strikes me as a team with great belief. And I think on Sunday, we're going to see another strong Bears performance. I think the Bears come out on the right side of it. So it's a Bears victory for me on Sunday.
I like the fact you use the word belief, because in my notes, what I have in all caps is the fact that you can't buy belief. And that's what Ben Johnson has put in to these boys, I think, over the course of the season. There's a reason, like, it's a rare thing that even if you've won 7 of the last 8, you trailed in the fourth quarter, 5 of those wins, and still managed to come out on the right side of things. And that's considering all that we say about, you know, who are the actual leaders on the field. And sometimes there isn't necessarily a standout player. Caleb Williams probably still, you know, his play is improving. It's getting less sloppy, but we don't look at him as being the crazy inspirational person. So it's coming from elsewhere. It's coming from a team-wide position. And there's other parts of that team which is playing well. Their offensive line is a really, really improved aspect of their team. And they're coming up against a defensive line for the Steelers, which is very much their strength. That is the Steelers' strength, is how much pressure they can put up on the quarterback. But the thing with the Steelers is, unless they control games early, they just don't win them, or at least they don't have full control. There was a couple of close games early in the season that they managed to get on top of, not least the one in Dublin against the Vikings. But other than that, unless their defense finds a way to have a game where not that they win the turnover battle, but that they dominate the turnover battle, like they get 5 or 6 turnovers, like they did against Indianapolis and did against New England, then it just becomes a bit scrappy, and then you're reliant on mistakes on the other side, or something that's going wrong in a turgid match or in a close game that somebody on the other side is going to blow it. And I just don't think the Bears are going to let themselves throw away a game like that, regardless of whether it is Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph starting. It's difficult to try and break down what the Steelers can do offensively, but we're not sure. I think Aaron Rodgers will play because of the significance of playing in Chicago. I think he's going to try and push himself forward to being that person, which again probably isn't the wisest decision, because that might actually limit what the Steelers are able to do offensively. But I think fundamentally, Steelers defense versus Bears offense, who do I trust more right now? The Steelers defense, considering it's the highest paid unit in the league, and as good as that front line is, it's too inconsistent for my liking against a Bears offense who I think have a lot of good parts running right now and are able to get key plays at key moments. If this is a close game, a field goal type game, which I think it very well could be, you know, the last 6 close one-score games that the Bears have played, they've won. So that's where the form is going. That's where I place my trust in. But I just think this quarterback situation in Pittsburgh, I think actually leaves them a bit of a weakness in terms of how many points they can put up. If this game was in Pittsburgh, I might look at it differently. But in Soldier Field, I think it might just be a little bit too difficult. So I'm going for a Chicago win here. Kieran.
I actually like the Steelers for this. I mean, I know, you know, all the talk's been about Rodgers going and owning Chicago, but, you know, Rudolph has got a great knowledge of that playbook as it is. I just think, you know, the Bears have been so close. They've been skirting by for the last, 4 or 5 weeks. I think that luck runs out. I think they're just the Steelers just going to bring the house. We know how skittish Williams can be when he's rushed and when he's pressured. I just think TJ Watt, Patrick Queen, all those dudes are just going to tee up. And then I think they're just going to drag them into a classic AFC North game where it's going to be a scramble. It's going to be a lot of, defensive plays, not a lot of kind of creativity. But we've seen this picture from the Steelers before. A couple of big sacks, a turnover. Let's wheel in Chris Boswell and we win 16-13. I think it's going to be that kind of game. I think the Bears' luck is going to start running out. Williams, he's been riding his luck the last 4 weeks, and I think that luck runs out. Give me the Steelers.
Before we move on to the 9 o'clock window, let's do a quick spin through of what we think is going to happen as Seattle Seahawks travel to Tennessee. Seahawks are 13.5-point favorites. I'd be surprised if they don't win by at least 13.5 points. It might be a bit too hyperbolic to try and say that Sam Darnold really throw 8 interceptions to give Tennessee a chance here. That might be a little bit too harsh on Tennessee. But I mean, if you look at the way these teams were playing, I definitely trust the Seahawks to get a big win here. Kieran.
Yeah. I mean, this as well as the Jets game, I think this is as big a lock as you can get. Ward doesn't have the weapons. He's got no O-line in front of him. Seattle are just going to tee up, and this could be a big win for them.
Brian?
It's a Seahawks victory, but I am a bit cautious of that 13.5 point spread, because there was a similar game a couple of weeks ago. I can't recall who it was. It maybe been the Chargers game. They were huge underdogs by maybe 12, 13 points, and they got out early and got a touchdown, and that can distort a line very quickly. It's a Seahawks victory, but I'm not entirely sure they will cover that handicap. I think it feels me more of a 10-point victory. I think they hang around, but Seahawks ultimately are too good.
Look at me. I'm just hanging around. That's how we see Tennessee going to this one. We kick off the 9 o'clock window with Jacksonville traveling to Arizona. Jacksonville is, despite their problems throughout the different points of the season, are still 6-4 and are definitely looking up at trying to make a playoff push, and maybe even a push for their division, depending on how their matches with the Colts later on this year go. Playing against a Cardinals team who have given up over 40 points in the last couple of days. I think John Gannon's seat is definitely a hot seat at the moment. Kieran, you obviously have a bit greater touch of these things, knowing how people in Jacksonville view this game. Is there confidence here, considering that Trevor Lawrence, despite the fact that the Jacksonville has been able to get a couple of victories, a pretty impressive one against the Chargers last week, it's not always been about Trevor Lawrence being able to light things up. They've found different ways and different players to try and come in and make plays. And I think they might still have to do the same here going into Arizona, who, oddly enough, the Jags are only 2.5-point favorites to win here.
Yeah, and the issue is nobody knows who the hell this team is. I mean, there's zero consistency. I mean, the record says it all. They win one, they lose one. It's, this is potentially a trap game for the Jags. I mean, you saw how well they played last week against the Chargers. Chargers never showed up. That was a pathetic performance. They left the building as soon as that game was over. There was just no interest in that game. But nobody really knows who this Jags team is. This is a really pivotal game, because if they win, they're 7-4. They get a little bit of space in that division away from the Texans. They kind of climbed. I mean, I think the Colts are out of sight at this stage. But a loss, I mean, you're 6-5. You're really on shaky ground now. This team, nobody knows what team is going to show up. The whispering around Lawrence went away a little bit last week. I mean, he didn't do a huge amount. And I think Cohen is taking – I mean, he took stock after that Texans game. I think he's looking at more of a run game, because you have in Tootin and Etienne. I mean, they combined for 140-odd yards last week and 3 touchdowns. I think Cohen sees now, take the ball out of Lawrence's hands. Don't let him do that crazy stuff, the fumbles, the turnovers, the inconsistent passing. I think he's going to start giving it more to the running backs. I don't believe in Trevor Lawrence. I've been whispering it a little bit in the last couple of years. I think people in Jacksonville are starting to see that you're always going to be a mid-level team, a mid-level franchise if you've got a mid-level quarterback. And Lawrence has had plenty of time to put his foot down and put his stamp on that team, and it's just coasting along, and he hasn't really made any kind of an impact. Fan favorite, but I mean, there's not a lot to choose from in Jacksonville right now. But I mean, for them, it's been about the defense. I mean, it was Campanelli and his boys in Trayvon Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker last week, but you can't rely on them to have a game like they had against the Chargers. Chargers just, I mean, no tackles at all, no tackles, period, including left tackles and right tackles. So it was a non-event last week, but nobody knows. I'd be worried if I was the Jags. I mean, the line is only 3. I mean, they're only a 3-point favorite, and you're going into the Cardinals, who are a terrible team, by the way. They have nothing. They have Jacoby Brissett throwing the ball like he's shooting out Exocet missiles. 47. I mean, he converted 47 passes last week. That's mind blowing for a team that still lost and only put up 22 points. I mean, they have no O-line. They have no defense to speak of. They fall behind early in games. I mean, for me, I can see a trap game, but I just can't see where the Cards are going to stay with them, because the Jags are putting up, I mean, they put up 30, 29, and 35 in the last 3 weeks. Scoring's not a problem. It's keeping the ball out the other end. The other thing that's leaning me towards a possible upset, they're not great on the West Coast or even out of Jacksonville. We saw that horror show in Houston. They barely scraped through in Vegas against the Raiders. So, I mean, I think they'll win, but it's going to be a really tight game. I don't think people are going to think that it's as comfortable as it might be against a pretty poor team in the Cardinals, who are just really at this stage going through the motions, and some of these players are trying to pad their stats to try and get a better deal with another team. But we'll know more Monday about this Jags team and who they are and what they're able to produce, because At this stage, the inconsistency is just there's nothing to put a finger on right now. It could go either way, but I do see the Jags eventually winning because it's just there's too much on the line, too much at stake in the playoff picture, and they really have to get the win. That's really the bottom line. So I'll take the Jags just about.
Yeah, I think they do have to take this win. But if you look at their schedule going ahead, it's interesting. At Arizona, at Tennessee, at home against the Colts, which could be very interesting. Depends on how the next 2 weeks go for Indianapolis. At home against the Jets should be a nice one for them there. At Denver, okay, that's a difficult one. At Indianapolis, and at home against the Titans on the last game of the week. There's a lot of very winnable games in that mix. So to drop this one would just be disastrous from their point of view. I think there's two people I need to give flowers to. But before I give my pick for this game, firstly, Jacoby Myers is somebody that when he moved over to Jacksonville, I was like, really? But in fairness, last week he came out, he was the only wide receiver who was actually gave any sort of production, particularly yards after catch for Jacksonville on an offense, which I think really needs that. So maybe he might just better suit that system more than others. Maybe it was one good game against a beat up Chargers defense. We're yet to see more consistency from that. And secondly, look, considering the Cards have lost 7 of 8, they consistently give up over 30 points. You know, Jacoby Brissett is throwing a lot of passes and is very accurate. Like you said, 47 completions, 452 yards. The thing is, though, he throws a lot of interceptions because he's been forced to throw the ball so much. What are Jacksonville good at? Getting interceptions. So for that reason, I'm going for a Jacksonville win here. Brian.
I picked the Jags to win the division at the start of the season, and despite the Colts' fantastic season, I'm still okay with it. I still think there's an opportunity for it to happen. They just need to find a way to keep themselves in the sweepstakes for these games. If they do win on Sunday and the form goes as we've suggested with the Chiefs winning, they're one game out of the division. They've got 2 games, as you've alluded to there, Shane, in terms of the schedule, against this Colts team in December. They're very much still in the mix. I get where Kieran's coming from. It's inconsistent. We've seen the 19-point debacle in Houston a couple of weeks ago. Even this game scares me in a way. I'm with Kieran. It's going to be one of those games, a measuring stick game. We'll know on Monday if this team is for real or not. It kind of reminds me of this game in Vegas. I could see this game even going down to a scenario where it might even pop into overtime and they still find a way to get over the line, and everybody on Monday will still not be convinced by the Jags. But I do have them winning because the Cards team are going in one way, and I think the head coach really is in a precarious situation there. So it's the Jags for me.
Right, we'll take another quick break.
This is Ireland. Rugged, wild, and endlessly captivating. A land shaped by history, where ancient castles whisper stories of the past. Where world-class links golf connects you to breathtaking landscapes. And where centuries of craftsmanship and culture are blended to produce world-class whiskies, savoured as music and laughter fill the air. But every journey with us is about people, place, and authentic experiences you'll never forget. This is more than a trip. It's the Dunes and Drams experience. Discover Ireland with us and make memories that will last a lifetime.
Probably the game of the late window is the matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys. And as much as the Cowboys have not really impressed us, we're not talking about them in the playoff hunt, they're not dead yet. They're sitting here, I believe I'm right in saying, at 4-5-1. This is a game where coming up towards a Thanksgiving game, which in fairness is against the Chiefs, but that's a nice primetime one. That's a traditional one that they always like to sort of perform well, and they really want a nice lead in against their oldest foes here. The Eagles' defense has been superb all year so far. We can't have any complaints about them. Their offense is yet to get going. Now, I think as Rich Eisen was saying during the week, tell me a team in the league whose offense has been clicking, and it's very difficult to actually point one out. It seems to be a consistent problem across the league that offenses aren't clicking in the way that they should be. But Brian, I'm looking at this one here and I'm wondering, is there a world where the Cowboys, in a matchup which two teams that are familiar with each other, where the Cowboys have a greater need to win than the Eagles, is there a possibility that the Cowboys could really put themselves back in the NFC playoff contention here?
Yeah, I believe there is, not necessarily to win the division, Shane, but I do think there's still a chance they can really run the table to a certain extent in terms of the games they got left and put themselves in a position late on in December, meaningful football late December for this Cowboys team, and potentially try find a way to get a wild card spot. like we saw week one, and I know week one is very different to where we are, and Kieran's right. It's like a mini preseason, what we see, teams are filling each other out. But they went in with little expectations in week one and gave the Eagles a real scare. They really should have won that game. They had a huge turnover in the red zone. I know it's a different environment. It's going to be, the Eagles defensively have really come on over the last few weeks. They've held them in the games. You saw 2 weeks ago on the Monday Night Football against the Packers. Their defense won that game for them. And last weekend, similar circumstances, they only had the 1 touchdown, and the defense held the lines in check for 9 points over the course of the game. But at some stage, someone's going to find you and hunt you down and beat you. And this Cowboys offense, on their day, can put up a huge amount of points on any team in this league. We saw it last Monday against poor Raiders team, what they can do. They can do damage. And I think on Sunday, they're going to come out, and I think the line is reflective of where the bookmakers and QuinnBet and others think this game is at. It's 3 points, 3.5 point favorites for the Eagles. They're not convinced by this Eagles team. And this Eagles offense, for me, has to turn up on Sunday. If they're going to win this game, we've got to see Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Smith, Jalen Hurts getting out in the perimeter. We've got to see all these players, the attributes that they have, come to the fore on Sunday, because I think the Cowboys are going to give them a lot to think about on Sunday. I think the Cowboys will come out and get the points that they need, and then it's a case. It doesn't feel to me like a shootout game, but I think it has the makings of it. I think maybe the Eagles' offense does show up on Sunday, because if they don't, I think the Cowboys will win. I'm going to go Cowboys to turn them over on Sunday. I don't even think it's a huge shock the way the Eagles are playing offensively at the moment. Defensively has held them in games. That's going to run out on Sunday. It's a Cowboys victory.
Kieran, a pre-Thanksgiving turnover for Dallas?
You know what? The best chance the Cowboys have to win this is, like Brian said, it's got to be a shootout. I mean, the Cowboys have put up incredible numbers. I mean, each one of their games averages ridiculous 600-something yards every game. They're not afraid to put up scores. They've got, two dynamite wide receivers out there. And to me, that's really the only way they can win this game. If it's a 50-point combined game or 55-point, whoever gets to 30 points is going to win this game. But the real kind of question is, how the hell are the Eagles so far ahead of everybody, and they've been so pedestrian? I mean, there's 7-1 in 1-score games, mirroring the Chiefs from last year. It's almost like they're lulling their opponents to sleep. They're not doing anything crazy. Saquon hasn't been a factor. AJ Brown has been complaining all the time. For God's sakes, the guy got a standing ovation. He complained all week. Don't put me on your fantasy team. I don't like this team. I'm pissed off, whatever it is. And then this is classic Philly. And I said it Monday, first catch of the game, he makes a really nice catch, and the whole stadium erupts. It's insane. Like that's the kind of dysfunction that's going on with this team right now. And how the hell are they where they are? Because it doesn't seem like anyone's happy. Saquon hasn't done a huge amount. Devonta Smith hasn't done a huge amount, but they're still grinding out wins. And I'll tell you why they're grinding out wins, because Amaro Ojomo, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, and Jalen Phillips, nobody can deal with these teams right now. And the Cowboys team, despite their O-line is ranked 8th right now. And they've got a decent O-line with Cooper Beebe. They've got Booker, Guyton in there as well, and Smith. They're going to have a hard time trying to keep Dak upright, because that front four is absolutely ferocious. And if the front four doesn't do it for you, well, then they got Nakobe Dean and they got Zach Bond in the linebacking core. And if that doesn't scare you, if you want to throw the ball, they got Quinyon Mitchell, DeJean, and Blankenship back there in the back four. So that to me is the real scary thing for the Cowboys. I mean, they've gone through teams, like hot knife through butter. I mean, they dismantled the Raiders. That wasn't competitive at all. But that's the only way that I can see this. It's got to be Dak thrown for like 35, 40 passes. It's got to be a whole lot of CD and George Pickens. It's got to be a lot of Javonte Williams on the ground. That O-line has got to keep them upright. But it's almost the inevitability, no matter what the score is. We saw it against the Rams. No matter how far you are ahead of this team, it's just like that kind of villain in the horror movie that's just catching up on you, but he's miles behind you, but he's catching up on you slowly but surely. And that's what the Eagles are right now. They scare me. They're not a great watch. I mean, you ask Eagles fans right now, it's not hugely enjoyable. It's Jalen Hurts with a tush-push touchdown. He might put up 120, 130 yards. He might throw a touchdown. There might be a nice, a nice screen pass. There could be a nice, kind of a slant pass, or there could be a skinny post to Devonta Smith that looks nice. But it's not an exciting team right now. They're bludgeoning teams to death. And they're just, like I say, imposing their will on other teams. But I'll be rooting for the Cowboys like crazy. I want them I want it to be Jerry Jones in the box every 10 minutes, just jumping up and down. I want this to be an electric game where the ball flies up and down the field, because I want the Cowboys to drag the Eagles into an offensive game. I want them to bring Saquon into it, and just a slugfest, just back and forth, because that's what we need. That's what we deserve with two teams like this, with the offensive weapons they have. It's time for the Eagles offense to wake up, show us what you got. Stop lulling us to sleep, and then just getting these monsters up front to just kill the game. Let's get Dak throwing the ball. Let's get the run game going on both sides. Scare that Dallas defense, which is a little better now. They got Quinn Williams and Logan Williams. They're starting, and Overshown. They're starting to get a little bit more healthy. But God, I want to see an offensive performance. I just want to see a 35-32, 38-35 kind of game. I hope we get that. But that's really, for me, the only chance that the Cowboys have a win in this game.
I love East Coast sports rivalries so much. I could see you there with your Yankees poster behind you. You were like, Philly, this is unbelievable. The way they're supporting this guy. You have your Giants poster there as well. It's so good. It brings so much energy. That's why the NFC East is worthy of the Hard Knocks treatment that it's getting, despite the fact that every team in its own way has disappointed all of us football fans. Even the Eagles, despite the fact that they're 8-2. I'm still picking the Eagles. I could definitely see a route for the Cowboys to win this one. I'm looking forward to seeing this game. I think there's a greater chance for a Cowboys, quote-unquote, upset here than most people are expecting. But I think, who do I trust in a fourth quarter situation? Dak has the ball. It's been either a shootout or a close game, either low scoring or high scoring. Dak has the ball against that Eagles defense to make the game-winning play. Who do I trust? Not Dak. I trust that Eagles defense. For that reason, I'm back in Philadelphia. Before we go into prime time, let's hit the quick pick session for two games in the late window, which I think will be a treat for their fans, but maybe not treats for many more across the league. Firstly, we have Cleveland Browns at Las Vegas Raiders. Brian.
Let me check I have to check the sheet on that one, Shane. I can't remember that one. I'm going to go with, I can't even see it on the sheet. The Raiders.
I went for the Browns, if that means anything. I want to see, let's see Shedeur get his ESPN worthy victory.
It shows the level of insight I put into this game, and I actually can't remember what my selection was. It's one of those games that not many people will be too clued in on the old Red Zone Sunday. Raiders at home for me.
Kieran.
Yeah, it has to be Raiders at home. The Browns offense is anemic. Great defense, but yeah, I'll take the Raiders in a close one. 10-7.
And further south, we have what is slowly becoming a battle for the basement in the NFC South, which we expected from one of these teams, but not from the other. The Falcons are 3-7. The Saints are 2-8. They're facing off in New Orleans. The Saints are 1.5-point favorites for a Falcons team who will have no Michael Penix and no Drake London. Kirk Cousins is playing quarterback for that team. And for that reason, I'm backing the Saints, who've been able to pull out a couple of these surprise performances against divisional opponents, specifically this year. I'm backing them to get a victory against their most hated rivals, because in a throwaway year, which it has been for the Saints, what do your fans want? They want a victory against your most hated rivals at home, and that's it. The season feels good, and I think they're going to do it. Brian.
In the throwaway season for the Falcons, they still have one of the most most influential running backs in the league if he's on his game, and that for me is Bijan Robinson. I'm going to go with the Falcons, and he's going to do damage on Sunday.
Kieran?
Yeah, as much as I want to pick the Saints, it has to be the Falcons, just purely based on talent. The real thing for me is the Penix injury. That's a third knee injury in the last 6 years, actually. That was the big worry of him coming out in the draft. He's done till next year. We'll see what that impact has on his career going forward. But yeah, even without London and him, I mean, Kirk Cousins is going to have enough to get over the line of this game.
We move on now to Sunday Night Football, the battle between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams. Rams are coming into this as 2.5-point favorites. I have no problem sitting back here and saying I think the Rams are one of, if not the best team in the NFL. I think they probably are the best team in the NFL, all things considered right now. If I was picking, and it's something we'll talk about more in depth when we do our sort of, well, not mid-season, but our late season proper show. We start talking about who we think is really put themselves in position to win the Super Bowl. For me, the Rams are that team. Even in games that are not playing well, they're finding ways to win. Stafford is the best quarterback in the league, particularly when he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But he's the best quarterback in the league when he's not being blitzed. If you're only sending 4 guys against him, he has time to think. He is by far better than anybody else going up against a Bucs defense, which probably won't blitz him a lot. He's got more. Stafford's got more touchdowns thrown than any other in the league. He hasn't thrown an interception in 7 games. He's only taken 14 sacks for the year, which is pretty good. His offense is 6th in points per game. There's so many weapons. Their defense is able to get things going. Even their punter managed to pull off one of the greatest special teams plays you will ever see last week against the Seahawks. And that was in a game where the Seahawks really had control. They controlled the yards. They controlled a lot of defense after the first 2 drives. But the Rams still managed to hold their nerve and come out with a victory. And I think against the Buccaneers, our team with a lot more weaknesses than we have seen from Seattle. This is in Los Angeles. The Bucs coming in here, and the Bucs defense is ranked 22nd, in the league. They gave up 44 in a chaotic game against Buffalo last week. Now, look, chaotic things happen. You score a lot of points, you give up a lot of points. That's just not the way that it works here. But they don't get consistent. They don't pressure consistently unless they give up a lot of players on the blitz. So it makes them very easy for them to pick off. And because the Rams have got so many weapons to throw to, I think Stafford is going to have a field day picking to his guys. And even though Baker and Co looks a little bit stronger, and Sean Tucker, in fairness to him, has had a pretty good 2 weeks. Firstly against the Patriots, and then last week against the Bills. Getting touchdowns in both. I just don't see a route for the Buccaneers to play strong enough to usurp an LA Rams team, who I think are just playing exceptional in every phase of the game. Who's on the list here? Brian.
Yeah, I'm deeply concerned about the Bucs defense. I don't think it's going to cost much. I think they're going to win the division and they'll be in the playoffs. But we've seen over the course of the last few weeks, they're on back-to-back defeats coming off the bye week. Against the Patriots, your team ran all over them. You could argue the conditions suited a run game to be really effective, but they couldn't stop the run. They struggled last week against James Cook. They did reasonably well in the first half to hold their defense, the Bills' offense in check. But ultimately, what happens is you have 3 rushing touchdowns from Josh Allen. He throws for 3 touchdowns. Yeah, people will suggest that this is a Bills team that when they're playing on fire, when Josh Allen's playing with his head on fire, nobody can stop them offensively. But this is where we are with this Bucs team now. There's so many high-scoring games. Their offense plays quite well, but again, they're now in a situation where they have to find ways to get themselves over the line in these shootouts. The Rams have only lost 1 game this season. They really should have won. Sorry, they've only lost 1 game at home this season. That was the Thursday night game, which really should have beaten the 49ers with so many special team errors, fumbles in the red zone. But they strike me as a team right now that we spoke about in the offseason. Kieran called out the fact that they should have beaten the Eagles in that playoff game last year. They have been waiting for this season. They've been waiting for this opportunity. And right now, it looks like for me, they could be the team that ultimately end up with the 1 seed. And in the playoffs, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go all the way to the Super Bowl. But if any team's going to be the Eagles team off to be in the Super Bowl for me right now, it's the Rams, and I think they'll win on Sunday Night Football as well. I think they'll have a similar kind of game against this Bucs team, nip and tuck. Bucs will get scores, but ultimately, come the 3rd or 4th quarter, they'll pull away. It's a Rams victory. I think to cover the line, which is 6.5 points with QuinnBet.
Kieran, any faith in your Floridian neighbors?
If the Bucs are going to win this, it's got to be all Baker. I mean, he's tailed off a little bit the last couple of weeks. Now, I think the injuries around him might have been having a factor in that. Tucker, he's the guy whose name I forgot earlier on. He's fitted in nicely. Igbuka's kind of cooled off a little bit as well, and I think the Bucs have really been struggling with those injuries that they've had. I mean, Godwin, Jamel Dean. Kalijah Cansey, they lost Cody Mauch on the O-line. Mike Evans, obviously, Jalen McMillan. So those are some really, key injuries in key positions. So they've been kind of spinning the wheels the last couple of weeks. The Rams, we all love the Rams. I mean, they're a great watch. They got great players on offense. I love the fact they're using 12 and 13 personnel. I think that's a great addition, and it's making defenses think a lot harder now. It's forcing them to use all sorts of defensive positions like 6 D-backs and cover 0, all that fun stuff. So I love the way that's kind of mixing things up in the league. But I think the Rams just have too much on offense. I think I'd love for Baker to have one of those all-time performances where he just headbutts his way to a victory and the team over. But I think the Rams have just too much, and they'll probably end up winning by 7 when all's said and done.
It's it's funny when we look at this game that's coming up on Monday Night Football, because there is a world where after Sunday night if as we all predict the Rams beat the Bucs, there is a world where in the NFC South the Bucs are on 6 wins and the Panthers are on 7. But in order for that to happen, the Panthers have to go into Santa Clara and manage to pick off a 49ers team who are 6.5-point favorites. Kieran, the 49ers have been streaky. I'm pretty sure that their win record over the last, I don't know how many number of games, but it always a win followed by a loss, followed by a win, followed by a loss. Probably too lazy to say, well, because they won last week, they're going to lose this week. But I think this matchup against the Panthers might be a little trickier than some people anticipate, despite the fact that the 49ers, like I said, are coming to this as 7-point favorites.
Yeah, but I think the thing for the 49ers right now is they have Purdy back, and we'll give the flowers to Mac Jones for keeping the ship steady in his absence. I mean, the 49ers they're averaging 504 yards on offense on combined passing yards in games, second most behind Dallas. We'll say that they're able to get the ball up in the air. They lead the league in success rate on passing plays, 51.6%. So a lot of that was Mac Jones, which is bizarre to say that. I mean, Purdy's been out since late September, but Purdy's back now, coincides with the return of George Kittle. And you saw last week the kind of bump and the jolt that the 49ers got with those two back. It's almost like they never missed a beat. And then you got McCaffrey doing what McCaffrey does. Bizarrely, McCaffrey has more receiving yards than rushing yards this season, which just shows the absolute, he's got to be on that team. He's the heartbeat of that team on offense. Playing his old team for the first time since he got traded. But I mean, the Niners, we talk about teams starting to get hot. The Niners, I mean, they could go to 8-4 and be in a real nice position in that division, put a little pressure on the Seahawks and the Rams too. And the thing that worries me about the Niners long term is that defense. They've just taken too many hits on defense. And that's, for me, the only way that the Panthers are going to stay in this game. Bryce Young, I mean, we talk about inconsistent players and inconsistent quarterbacks from week to week. We never know what Bryce Young's going to show up. He'll beat the hell out of the Falcons, and then he'll look terrible against other teams. Again, I keep talking about his frame. I have concerns about his leadership ability. I don't think, we talk about franchise quarterbacks in the league. You can rattle off all of them. Bryce Young is not a franchise quarterback, and I know Dave Canales is thinking the same thing. He doesn't have the frame, the size, the leadership ability. So this for Bryce Young, he's got 6 games now to show Canales that he can just not only stay on the team but be a leader. So it's a huge couple of weeks for him. And I did call the Panthers. I did say they'd have a nice run at the start of the season, so I'm happy about that. They could go to 7-5. A lot of that's been on Rico Dowdle, and that's really, to me, the key to winning this game. If you're a Panthers fan, they've got to attack this decimated 49ers defense. It's just, there's been so many hits on it. I mean, Michael Williams, Lenore, Gross Matos, you've lost Bryce Huff. So many hits they've had on defense. For me, that's the only way that the Panthers are going to stay competitive in this. They do have a nice, passing game with Leggett and obviously Teterow McMillan. But you're in San Francisco. It's Monday Night Football. The crowd are going to go bananas. You've got a healthy Purdy, a healthy Kittle, McCaffrey just pulling all the stops. Regardless of their issues on defense, I think they have too much. The Panthers are just not going to be able to stick with Kittle, McCaffrey, and all, and even Juwan Jennings. You can throw him in there too, and Pearsall. I can't see. And the Panthers are without one of my favorite players in the league, Christian Roseboom. So without him, you combine that with the Niners kind of starting to get something going right now with Purdy. I like the 49ers at home in this one.
I'll keep this relatively brief, but I'm going for the Panthers to get the upset here for 2 reasons. One, I think the 49ers defense is too banged up for Rico Dowdle, and the offensive line that the Panthers will bring, and how well they played the run game. I think the 49ers defense is probably more banged up than we anticipated. We realize that should keep that as quiet as they need to try and keep this game close, or even in control for San Francisco. Secondly, I think we talk about players and teams coming hot at the right time. I think Bryce Young, we saw last year, he was very much a second half of the season type quarterback. The later he got into the season, the better he played. Watching last week's game against the Falcons, what I noticed with Bryce Young is he was connecting on passes, particularly 10 yards or more down the line, that he just wasn't connecting on previously, because he used to be a consistent overthrower, and I think he's becoming a lot more accurate. You can see his accuracy building slowly, week per week. This is up against a Niners defense, which, yes, played against Arizona last week, but they did all give up over 450 yards to Jacoby Brissett and didn't get enough coverage on the wide receivers to let a lot of those passes go incomplete. There was a lot of separation there, which is masked by the fact that just generally the Cardinals are a terrible team. I agree with all what you say, Kieran, in terms of how good this Niners offense is looking, in particular with all the pieces that it's getting back. But in a close game here, is there a route for the Panthers to get a victory? If Bryce Young stays accurate, if he doesn't give up any turnovers, I don't think he will. If Rico Dowdle goes out and has a good day, and all it takes is for McMillan or Leggett to have one really good yard after catch play, or just to make something happen really quick and exciting. The Panthers can go in and get the victory here. So it's an upset, and many people will probably feel it is maybe a step too far for Carolina. I don't. I think Carolina could go and get this victory here. Brian.
Sweet home Carolina. If Shane comes up with the biggest shock of the weekend in the last game, which we're discussing. Sorry, Shane, I can't go there this weekend. I think I'm with Kieran. I think the 49ers are just sitting in the background, lurking, waiting for that opportunity. Division probably is a bit too much of a stretch, but they're certainly in the wild card sweepstakes. And this is the type of game they've got to have, and I believe they will. I think McCaffrey will have a big game against his former side. He come 2 touchdown type of game for McCaffrey. It's the 49ers for me.
Right, that's it for our Week 12 preview. Thank you very much for listening to us if you tune in live or whether you're tuning in on podcast form. We'll be back for our Instant Reaction podcast this coming Sunday night, and then it all gets back into it next week. But next week, of course, is gravy and turkey and all the rest as we go into Thanksgiving, and that's when football really, really gets important. That's when we get to the proper squeaky bone time. But for now, thank you very much for listening to the Irish NFL Show.